close enough? Wait 1 minute. Yeah, 6:59. All right, my phone says 7 o'clock. We like to start on time so we can get you back home. My name is Dan Lawrence. I'm one of the counselors here at Chippewa. I'm here with Stephanie Pitcher, and we have a special guest I'll introduce in a second. We are so happy to have you all here today. We put on these meetings periodically. We don't do a lot of meetings in the counseling office. When we do them, we want to share important things. So we'll do a senior meeting for those of you who are going to have seniors next year. We do that in the fall. We do things around our curriculum fair and our curriculum night to share information with you about things that are maybe coming up in the 10th grade or the 11th grade. When you were in 8th grade students, you probably came to this auditorium. Maybe you didn't because it was COVID, but some of you came for meetings for your 8th grade orientation. So we don't do a lot of them, but when we do them, they're pretty well attended like this is. This is a pretty good attendance for what we're trying to accomplish today, which is to talk about dual enrollment. So we're really happy you're here. Stephanie and I have put a program together, and we typically will do it by ourselves, but this year we invited a guest from Macomb Community College to come and tell us about the process at Macomb. So that will help us all together, and he'll do a few slides, and then Stephanie and I will finish up the program after that, and hopefully we'll have time for questions. So students, or if you're a parent representing a student because your student's not here, you may have done it out in the hall, but if you didn't, could you please take a shot of the QR code and take attendance? Okay. And if you did it accidentally for your student, that's fine too. It just goes to a list that we're keeping track of. We want to see which students have participated in this training, so we know who are those folks we don't have to worry about when they go to sign up for college classes. That's this group in this room. Okay, so students, take attendance with this. This will also give us an opportunity to start communicating with you, because I think what Stephanie put on there was the email that you check most frequently, and a telephone number so we can get a hold of you students when we need to. Because a lot of this stuff for dual enrollment happens during the summertime. So we might need to contact you during those times, so we need reliable ways to communicate with the students. All right, everyone have that? Okay. All right, so Michael Baysdale, is that how you say your last name? I didn't want to get, okay, thank you, Michael. Michael has a long teaching career and a recent transition over to Macomb Community College, but boy, I've talked with him for the last 10 or 15 minutes. He's passionate about Macomb and all the services it can provide. So I'm going to hand it over to Michael, and Michael's going to talk about dual enrollment from Macomb's perspective.
Thank you. Good evening. So you're all here, and I want to tell you, students, you are making a phenomenal choice. Do you have a clicker too? Yeah, right here. There we go. There you go. So that was a great introduction. My name is Mike Baysdale. I'm the Director of K-12 Relations at Macomb Community College. I just started my position about 7 years. As was alluded to, I was a teacher for 21 years in the Davison School District, and then in August, I had this really neat opportunity to come to Macomb, return to my roots. I'm originally a Macomb County kid, and promote dual enrollment. And I kind of have an interesting history myself. I was one of the first dual enrollment students back in 1996 to be sponsored under the state of Michigan's law. So I want to tell you a little bit about that and why dual enrollment is such a mission for me. So I remember I was 17 years old and called down to the office one day, and there were a number of my classmates there, and we were all sitting outside it was the counseling office, and we're all looking at each other. What do we do? Okay, what do we do to get in trouble here? And they called us in and said, this law just passed, and you're all going to do it. So for us, it was barely a choice. We did have a choice, but I do think this is an amazing opportunity for you. I only had my senior year, so who am I working with tonight? How many of you are current freshmen? Nobody. Didn't expect it because it's hard to start that early. Current sophomores. Oh, I'm jealous of you. You'll find out in a second. Current juniors. All right. You guys still have plenty of time left. So I only had my senior year, okay, to do dual enrollment. I did manage to take 5 courses during my senior year. It was 19 credits, and I used those 19 credits to shave a year off my 4-year degree. Now, it's a little more complicated than that. I took 1 summer class, and I maxed out 18 credits every semester, but I made it happen, and you can too. Is there anyone here who is intending on studying pre-professional programs, pre-law, pre-med, pre-vet? Raise your hands. Anybody here looking at that for college? Because let me tell you something. If you are, you need dual enrollment even more because you're going to be in school a very long time. All right? So anyway, like I said, I was very lucky. I finished my bachelor's in 3. I went ahead and got my master's in 1, and I was in the classroom teaching at age 22 with my master's degree. That's what dual enrollment can do for you. And those of you who are younger than seniors next year, you have even more of an opportunity because the state of Michigan gives you up to 10 courses that you can take. It's not credits, it's 10 courses. So most of our courses at Macomb are 3 or 4 credits. You do the math. You can end up with a whole bunch more than 19. And it's a very flexible way of doing it too. So anyway, dual enrollment can do the same for you. So dual enrollment, parents, is open to both public and non-public school students. This is the generic one I give when I'm at a big event. But obviously, as a public school student, let's talk about how dual enrollment is funded. And I also want to take a moment to make sure you understand some of the pitfalls too. Some of you say, well, he's trying to sell dual enrollment. Why would he do this? Because I want to be responsible, okay? And I think it's an amazing opportunity, but I need you to go into it clear-eyed. Because I'm going to be the one that's processing your form. I'm going to be the one that's reporting to your counselor just how well you did, okay? So anyway, the way it works is because Chippewa has 6 periods a day and semesters, 1/12 of the foundation allowance that you get from the state of Michigan is essentially what's available for each dual enrollment class. It's $725. Next year, if the foundation allowance goes up, it might go up a little bit more. But that's about what you're working with, okay? You do this right, you shouldn't have to pay anything out of pocket. Now, that said, if you fail a class, you're going to be paying the district back, okay? That is state law, okay? Students, take this seriously. You are starting a college transcript. Now, for some of you, that can be a very good thing. Okay? And I'll call it right now. There'll be at least one student in this room, probably many more. They're going to have a higher college GPA than a high school GPA. Because you're going to start your dual enrollment class, which, by the way, starts on August 21st. And with multiple semester registration, this is so cool. You can lock in your classes now for fall and winter next year. And by the way, once you're admitted, and we'll talk about that process in a second, parents, if you want to support your student, once they are admitted for dual enrollment, maybe they're taking 2 courses each semester next year. You know, sometimes we start with 1, sometimes students do 2. I was lucky, my school sponsored me for 3. But once they do that, they have enrollment permission all the way through August of their senior year. If you and your child talk about it and say, you know what, I kind of would like to take a spring summer class, mom and dad, are you in a position to pay for it? You have that option. Now, the school's not going to pay for that. But once you're admitted, there's an awful lot of doors that open up to you. I have a young lady at Fraser, and she did not do early college, okay? We're talking about strictly dual enrollment tonight. She did that. She took her maximum 10 that she could take. She started as a freshman. She took courses during the summer. We just awarded her her associate's degree. She has not graduated high school yet. So I want you to be realistic, but I want you to think big. There's some amazing opportunities here, all right? And she also had a mom and dad that were willing to support. But parents, honestly, I can't think of a more worthwhile thing to do. So anyway, we talked about how that's funded. So students have to apply to Macomb, and we'll talk about what that looks like in just a second. You're sponsored for $725. Now, another misconception that happens with colleges is that we often hear people say, "Oh, college is so expensive. It's so ridiculous. You get into so much debt." Do not group us in with them. We're $106 a credit hour. Guys, I had to buy 1 credit hour my last semester when I was at Alma, okay? I needed 19 my last semester to graduate, okay? That was in 2000. I paid $500. You can take an entire class at Macomb with fees for about $400 for a pretty typical 3-credit course. Where's the other money then? I thought I just said that we were sponsoring you for $725. That's where your books come from. But you do have to be careful about a few things. There are some courses, particularly hard sciences, that we have to bill a little bit more than what their regular credit hours are. I think biology is 6 or 7 credit hours. Well, think about it. The glassware, the lab, all that kind of stuff. Now, in a situation like that, if you were just to take one of those classes, okay, yeah, you're going to probably exhaust your $725, and you're probably not going to have enough money for books. So what do? Take 2. Take your expensive class, and then take something that's cheaper. Psych 1010, Intro to Mythology. We have so many cool classes. I don't even know them all because I've only been there 7 months. I was talking to a principal from Utica the other day, and she said to me, one of my students is taking elder law and estate planning. She says, I want to take that class. So we have and by the way, everything in our course catalog is open to you, okay? With the exception, because of state law, you can't take anything PE, and you can't take anything related to religion, divinity. We don't offer a lot of that stuff. But anyway, those are the 2 no-nos. Everything else is open. And that brings up another point, parents, that I want you to be aware of. Bells and whistles will not go off in the instructor's computer because they have dual enrollment students, okay? Also, we'll need to talk about FERPA too, because once your student enrolls, you don't have access to anything else. Now, students, before you start celebrating, I will strongly, strongly, strongly encourage you to file a FERPA form to give at least one parent access, and I'll tell you why. Not because they want to, hover over you. We had a young lady last semester coming in for her first college class, got in a car accident and broke her leg. She's okay. But while she's laying in the hospital with, can you imagine the leg up in the air? She wanted to do her homework. So the mom reached out to the professor and he could not help her because of federal law. So do 2 things for me, students, when you enroll at Macomb. Number 1, file a FERPA form for mom and dad. It makes it easier. If they go to the bookstore can talk to mom and dad then and figure out what might be wrong. If you don't have that FERPA on file, there's a lot of things we can't do. Once your student enrolls, if you pick up the phone and call my office, I can't even tell you if your student is enrolled. That's how strict it is. And you'd say to yourself, well, geez, these kids aren't even 18. Yeah, I know. Federal law doesn't care. The second thing, we are very blessed at Macomb. We have a very safe set of campuses. We really do. When you look at our data, we are among the safest, not just in Michigan, but in the country. But do me a favor, students. Get the college police number and put it in your cell phone. And I hope to God you never need it. And you probably won't, but I want it to be there, okay? So let's talk a little bit about the process of getting in. There is a Chippewa Valley process. We don't get involved in that. There's a certain GPA, there's a certain PSAT score that you have to have. Actually, there's multiple tests you can take that can demonstrate your readiness for dual enrollment. We don't get involved in that. All we do is we wait for that dual enrollment sponsorship form and your application, and we process it, okay? We leave that up to the experts here at Chippewa, okay? So we talked about the courses you can't take. We did talk about the 10-course limit. And parents, just remember, almost all these courses are now open to your student. That means if your child takes a human sexuality class, it will not be taught any differently because they are a minor. Some of you are okay with that, and I get that. Some of you would pause because of that, and I get that too. All right? And also, remember, if you do not pass the class, you're going to be paying back your district for the cost. Another thing I want to talk about with transferability and stuff, if you want to transfer a class, you got to have a solid C or better, okay? That's important. Another thing that I encourage, a lot of kids come to me and say, I don't know what to take. 3 words, Michigan Transfer Agreement. It has never been easier to transfer credits than it is today. That said, it's not foolproof. And if you know the 4-year school you want to go to, I would go on their website and I would take a good long look at it, keeping in mind that not all the classes are going to be available to you because Chippewa has some rules. You know, I know one of the rules, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that you have to have taken the highest level course here at the high school in a particular subject before it would be open to you at Macomb. And that makes sense to me. You guys are very blessed. Now, another option I'm going to say, so some of you have already taken AP courses. I taught AP for 21 years. How many of you have taken and passed an AP test? Guess what? You can transfer that too. In fact, let me tell you something. You can take that AP score. When you become a dual enrollment student, please transfer it to Macomb. We give credit for any 3. Any 3. Some of you might be looking at colleges like U of M, where I went, where they might only take a 4 or a 5. But once you transfer it to your Macomb transcript, U of M doesn't look at it again. Okay? That's all I'm going to say about that. So it's a really neat opportunity. I found this out kind of working in the Flint area at Davison, that many of my students who took my classes and passed with 3s, you know, Michigan or Michigan State was being, you know, persnickety about it. And we found out that if they transferred it, if they were a dual enrollment student and they transferred to community college, they were not having the trouble because the grade doesn't transfer, just the course does, okay? So here's our process. So your counselor is going to complete a dual enrollment sponsorship form. And I'm going to be coming back here to Chippewa. And I think you guys had the date. Thank you. They know my calendar better than I do because I do this 4 or 5 days a week, okay? So I'll be back here on April 20th. Now, at that point, hopefully you have your application done, okay? Hopefully you've done your additional steps, and we're going to talk about this. Now, I'm being recorded, so I got to be careful. I've been working at Macomb for 7 months, and there's a lot I love about my new job. But like any job, there's a few things that frustrate me. And I'm going to tell you right now, our admission system is a little clunky. And I think that's fair. It asks you to jump through some hoops. You can all do this, okay? So, and really it doesn't matter until very close to when the semester starts, because you can be dropped due to non-payment. Your counselor is going to complete the dual enrollment sponsorship form. It's going to tell me what courses you are allowed to take. If you sign up for something else that isn't on that list, you're going to get dropped, okay? Or you're going to end up paying for it yourself. Follow the rules. Counselors can put down, you know, a specific class. They can even put down a specific section. I don't know if I told you guys that. You can demand that a particular section be the only class allowed so that if you want the student to take it face-to-face, you can mandate that, okay? And we'll talk about our different types of courses in a second too, because I think that's important for people to understand, okay? You're going to create an admissions account, student. You can do this on your phone, okay? I'm still a little bit of the older generation. I still like using a laptop or a computer, but you can do it on your phone, and I've watched kids do it right in front of me. When you create your admissions account, please use a personal email. For some reason, the school emails they like to gum up the system, okay? So use an iCloud, a Gmail, something like that. You're going to create an admissions account. You'll need your social security number to do so. Once you do that, pretty much once you finish the account, it'll take you right, and it'll say, do you want to apply? Yes, okay? When you go to the Macomb website, you want to click on Get Started, Apply for Academic Study, and you need to apply as a dual enrollment student. If you do any other application, it won't work. We're going to make you do it all over again, okay? So that's what you have to do, okay? Once you get admitted, you are not admitted. Yes, I really said that. There are additional steps, okay? Internally, we call you ASIP, admitted but steps in progress. And I got some bad news for you. Last week, if we would have had this meeting prior to Monday, there were 2 additional steps. Now there's 4, okay? They're not a big deal. So the first one is what we call new student orientation, okay? New student orientation is you just click through a number of slides, and it tells you about Macomb, and it explains the dual enrollment process, and more importantly, it tells you about some of the things that you get to enjoy as a Macomb student. One of the phrases that I want banished from your lexicon after tonight, I don't want to hear any of you students ever say, I'm just a dual enrollment student. No, you are a full-fledged Macomb Community College student with all of the rights and privileges and access to resources that any other student that has ever attended Macomb has. You have the ability to go to the tutoring center and get help, either in person or over the internet. You have the ability to go to the writing center when you're writing that first paper in a college class and you're not quite sure you're doing what they're looking for. Please take advantage of that. You have access to counseling and academic advising, all right? Whether it's for, I don't know what course to take, or I'm having a personal problem and nobody in my life seems to care. We do. So you'll have that ability, okay? So that's some of the cool things that you have, being a student at Macomb. So once you get admitted, here are your steps. And I actually have to update this because technology-wise, this part is still true. It takes 4 hours to get your My Macomb password. I can't speed it up. There's nothing else I can do. So when I come back on the 20th, if you can all be admitted and you have a My Macomb password, I can take you the rest of the way. If you're not admitted, I can't because it takes 4 hours, okay? So it's just the way they have to build up your My Macomb account, and it's just the way it works, okay? You have 4 steps. Now I have 2 on here because it just changed. The first one is the new student orientation. We talked about that. Now, the other step is what we call starting at Macomb or your SAM session. Now, students, you know these things? I'm gonna tell you something really cool about them. They make calls. Did you know that? And this is the hardest part for many students. Parents, you're gonna laugh because the student actually has to pick up the phone and make a call to an adult. And I have literally held students' hands when I've been doing, because they're so nervous. And if you need me to hold your hand, I guess I can come out here too, But you call counseling and academic advising. They're gonna ask some important questions. Do you have a 504 or an IEP? And you're saying to yourself, well, why would someone with a 504 or an IEP, do dual enrollment? You'd be shocked, okay? And we do a very good job of trying to respect some of the things that are in those plans, all right? I've got students from Chippewa right now with 504s and IEPs who are doing a great job in their courses. I know because I check up on them, okay? Students, you're saying, you can't tell my parents what I'm doing in class. Oh, really? Guess what? If you get an academic alert, not only am I going to contact you, I'm calling your counselors because that's a FERPA loophole. I can actually get away with that. It allows me to do that. Best part of it, okay? So those 2 things, the starting at Macomb for some students is a challenge, and parents, you might need to prod them a little bit. There are 2 new things that just came in this week. We don't do placement tests, but we do have what's called guided self-placement. Now relax, you don't have to take a math test, you don't have to take an English test. They're gonna show you some god-awful math problem, and it's gonna ask 1 to 5, rate your confidence. 0, okay? And that's all it is. That's all it is. But if you don't complete the math and the English one, it will hold you back from registering, okay? So consider it now you've gone from 2 steps to 4, but that's the way it works, okay? There's also multi-factor authorization. Every time you log into Macomb, and this is happening in everything, so why am I surprised? You're gonna have to get a text on your phone that you're gonna have to put in to make sure you are you, okay? And as someone who just had 2 credit cards stolen 3 months ago, there's probably a good reason why that happens, okay? After you do all of this, you are now eligible for enrollment. My office puts on what's called EA, enrollment approval. You are good to go, all right? At that point, you are responsible for registering for your classes. 1 pro tip. I had a student last semester, and I go to bat for my students, my dual enrollment students, but I had a student last semester who did everything. He had his classes in student planning. He knew what he wanted to take. He showed up on the first day. He never pushed the button. He did everything but enroll. Okay? Please don't be that kid. Okay? Make sure you are, properly enrolled in your class. In that situation, I did contact the associate dean. We did get the student in. A couple other things. You need to do work in the first 3 weeks. Now, I taught as an adjunct faculty member. While I was teaching high school, I taught college at night at Saginaw Valley. So I was an adjunct faculty member for 13 years. One of the things I would tell students is, your first week, I hate that phrase, syllabus week. Oh, it's syllabus week. Nothing's going to get done. It's party time. No, it's not. Now, it is true if you drop a class, you're going to want to have your books unopened, okay? I can't, as far as refunds go. That said, as an instructor, I can tell you some of the most valuable work is done in that week or two before the class starts, and you get your books early, and you start reading a couple chapters. And that'll give you an idea of, what the class is going to expect. Usually a week before, you can at least get into the class on Canvas. And by the way, do you guys use Google Classroom here? No? Schoology? That's even worse. We use Canvas, and you're going to love it. I like it so much that in my high school classes during COVID, I used Canvas with my kids, okay? That said, you're going to want to do the tutorial. You guys are good on technology. I have no worries that you're going to be able to pick this up and pick it up fast. I will also say this. Once you've learned how to do Canvas at Macomb, most other schools in the state of Michigan use Canvas. So once you have that experience, you can go anywhere, and it's going to be easier for you. And I think that's another great benefit of dual enrollment, okay? Also, after you enroll, make sure you do something within the first 3 weeks. If you don't do a homework assignment in the first 3 weeks, you're marked as a no-show. That's an E and O. Yeah, you got to pay the district back because you got an E. So please, please, please take that seriously. When do you guys start school here at Chippewa? Okay, that's another issue. Our college classes in the fall start August 21st. Now, we offer 16-week courses the whole semester, 12-week courses, and 8-week courses on both bookends of the semester. I do not recommend an 8-week course for your very first college class, okay? As far as modalities go, okay, so I think a 16 or a 12 is fine. If you get straight A's that first semester and you got this, talk to your counselor, and if you want to, you go for it. It's your life. As far as how classes are offered, I also want to talk about that. We offer face-to-face courses. I also recommend that for your first college course. I think it's a good experience because students, you're going to get some culture shock, okay? You're going to be in a classroom with people who might be older than mom and dad. I know as an adjunct, I had to deal with this. I started adjuncting at age 30, and all I had ever taught were 16, 17, and 18-year-old students, okay? And I walk in that first night, and there was a woman there almost double my age. I had to make a quick, I'm not saying it was easy, but I think it's another great experience about dual enrollment is that, and there might be group projects and things like that you have to work on as well, okay? So I mentioned before, you're not just a dual enrollment student, you are a Macomb Community College student, and I think there's some very good benefits that come along with that. Here's my contact information, okay? My office, there's my email, and I give this out. If you have any trouble enrolling or anything like that, you can absolutely contact me. I may pass it off to my secretary because I'm out of the office a lot, okay? Make me your first point of contact if you have any questions. If you have questions on what classes to take, you can also contact my office, okay? I'm slowly growing staff. I'm going to hire a manager in the next week or two, and they'll be able to assist you as well. So give us some grace, okay? I try to get back to everybody within 24 hours, but if I get a mad rush after a session, it might be 2 or 3 days. The great thing is we just opened enrollment today for fall and winter. You have plenty of time. But at the same time, don't dawdle, okay? Now, before I move on to you guys, what questions do you have of me and the Macomb part of the process? Go ahead.
Okay, I'm Mike. Okay, thanks. Good evening. Just wanted to know if this is you guys do have a longer this is just a general list, correct? You have more courses? Okay. And then my
Or-
second question
yeah.
was because we're looking into engineering, so you do have some stuff, some courses geared to that.
We do. We also offer a lot of CTE courses. I've never seen a college with such a huge list of classes that are available. I mean, if culinary is your passion, you can pursue that. If you know, we just opened our new dental hygiene clinic at South Campus. And in case you're wondering, you can take classes at both, but you're so close to center. It's such an advantage. I am jealous of the Fraser kids. They're literally right in the middle between the two campuses, and I do have Fraser kids who take classes at both. You know, so yes, we do. There's a couple different ways to do it. What I recommend is, I mean, if you're looking at a program like nursing or something, you can take the medical terminology, or if you're looking at engineering, you can take the first level engineering course. But I'm going to tell you, because plans change, Michigan transfer agreement. It's a chunk of 30 credits. It transfers as a block. And no public university in the state of Michigan can deny the transfer as long as you have a C or better in every class and you complete all 30 credits. The pro tip, the hardest part of them, and if you Google Michigan Transfer Agreement, Macomb Community College, it will come up. First thing you do, see if there's any AP you've taken that can knock off parts of it. That's the first thing you do. Second thing is start figuring out what you could take with your dual enrollment credits, what's open to you, what's available, what classes that you can take to try to fulfill that. All right? It really, you will thank yourself later on. It is just, it's so flexible. So even the toughest, even the U of M's and Michigan States and the directional schools, if you complete the Michigan Transfer Agreement, they can't say no. They have to take the credit, or they lose their state funding. I don't think that's going to happen. Okay? Other questions?
What if it's an out-of-state college?
If it's an out-of-state college, I wish I had a better answer for you. I would consult their transfer stuff that's available. I might even contact one of their counselors over there. If it isn't, I will also say, the Michigan Transfer Agreement, there are some private schools signed up to it, but I don't know of any out-of-state ones. So it's certainly, it's something worth looking into. But I can tell you this, if you take the basic transferable classes, and they're probably not gonna let you do English or math here because they're gonna want you to take that your senior year anyway. But if you look at most of the other classes that students are taking, transferability is pretty good. Is there anything else I can answer? Yeah.
When you put it on your schedule, like if you do like a face-to-face, how would that look? Like you leave school and just go straight there?
I leave that up to your professionals here. Yeah, they're going to cover that as part of their presentation. But different schools do it different ways. I've seen some that say at the end of fifth hour, see ya. Go ahead. And by the way, you can also take your dual enrollment class. You can take it after school. You can take it during the time period that's allotted. Now, every school has different rules on this. Some kids take it on Saturday morning so they can just focus on that one dual enrollment class. We don't judge. We're excited that you guys are looking at this opportunity because, and I'll leave you with this thought. So when I was at Alma, after being there for 3 years, I had enough credits to graduate, all right? And I was up on the stage and I was accepting an award from the president of the college. And I took a look out into the crowd and I saw sitting in a row all the guys that were with me in the freshman dorm that first year. And the looks on their faces when they realized I was graduating and they were not was absolutely priceless. So if you need a motivating factor, think about that one, okay? And then I have students, I also have students who say, well, I'm in the running to get a scholarship for athletics or whatever. Great. Do what Peyton Manning did. So if you're ahead on credits when you come in, you could either reduce what you're taking, along with your sports schedule, but I wouldn't recommend that. I would do year 2, year 3, year 4, and then that 4th year when you're a senior and they really need you on that football team, go do what Peyton Manning did and get your master's degree and they'll pay for it. The choice is yours. You guys have been a great audience. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. If there's anything I can ever do for you or your student, just keep in mind, parents, once they enroll, once they're in a class, I can't talk to you anymore. So if that's important to you, please make sure your student files that FERPA form. And students, it's good for you to do too. Because if mom wants to go to the bookstore and there's any kind of a hang up, the bookstore staff can talk to them if there's a FERPA on file. Anything else? It's Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, FERPA. And it's a form, it's an electronic form that's available on our website. Also keep in mind your student can revoke it any time without telling you. So every time I talk to a parent, I have to go back into our system and verify that it's still good. Okay? So you would almost think that, your child's under 18. Shouldn't a parent have a right to do that? Well, federal law never really saw dual enrollment coming. FERPA's from like the 1970s, and they've never updated it. So we have to follow the law. But students, I can always speak to you about questions you might have or challenges that you're having, and so don't be afraid to reach out to me in my office. Okay? You're making a great decision. I'm excited for you guys. I can't wait to see your dual enrollment sponsorship forms. Okay? Thank you.
Gosh, I want to go do dual enrollment as well. I went to Macomb in 1988, and I don't think I was that excited about Macomb when I was going there. Fantastic. What's so cool also about the presentation, having Michael here, is he covers a lot of the stuff that we would cover, so we're going to fly through some of the slides and focus more on the process of how it applies at Chippewa. And what we'll do as well is we'll take this PowerPoint sometime tomorrow and put it up on our website. On the Counseling Office website, we have a page for dual enrollment. If you went on there now, it has last year's dual enrollment presentation on it. We'll update that tomorrow and put this year's on it, and it'll have Michael's slides there that have all those steps that specifically talked about Macomb. This slide, right now the focus for the counselors is working with all the students. We've been meeting with every student one-on-one, and we just finished that today. We went down to the 9th grade center and met with all of the current 9th graders. So we've met with about 1,700 students in the last month. And the focus is on selecting courses for next year. And when we do that, we want people to focus on career and college. So we put this slide up there to remind you is that you can have an organized way of approaching your career choices. Sometimes people fall into their careers. Sometimes they follow opportunities and they end up with their careers. Sometimes their parent gives them a job because they have a business. There's lots of different ways to get to a career. But there are resources out there to research these things and give you some ideas that you can start to follow. And these are some tools to use. What the other piece about dual enrollment, and Michael did such a good job at that, is transferability. So we talked about that Michigan transfer agreement, and that's a big deal. Colleges and universities, they have ways to help you with determining what's going to transfer and what won't. And I think generally that transfer agreement works great. The out-of-state college idea, I think if you look at some basic courses like sociology, humanities, philosophy, those are courses that you take at Macomb that would transfer to any of the colleges that are on this and any of the other 3,000 colleges in the country. So Michael talked about it being a law, and it is. And he talked about that 1/12 of the state allotment paying for this, and that's about $725. We don't give you the difference back, but that's how much we have to pay for the class, for tuition, for fees, and for books. And if it goes over that amount, which sometimes it does, then the student pays the difference. And when we've seen it go over, it might go over about $40 or $50 or $75. And it might be a 4-credit-hour class that also had some lab fees and had a very expensive book. You add those things together, and that's going to get you over $725. For most of the classes, it's below that. Okay. And even though Michael was from Macomb, and we love Macomb because it's right down the street, and like I said earlier, I went to Macomb and graduated with an associate's degree there, you can do dual enrollment at any college or university. Now, ours is a mile away, but we have had students who've gone to Oakland, who've gone to Wayne, who've gone to some other colleges in the area. But I'll tell you, Ms. Pitcher and I don't recommend that. For one, we don't have that working relationship like we do with Macomb. So if something goes wrong, the counselor has a tough time helping you with that. And they're way more expensive. So that $725 will get eaten up pretty quick at Oakland or at Wayne. So take the class at Macomb, and then if you're going to Oakland or Wayne later, you'll transfer that thing to them, and it will be like you haven't missed a beat. All right? So who qualifies for Macomb? You have to have taken one of these tests. Now, there's some schools that really hold you to a passing score. We don't, but what we want you to do is always do best when you're taking these kind of tests, PSAT, SAT, that kind of stuff. And everybody in this room, all the students in this room are going to be taking the PSAT and the SAT, and many of you are going to be taking it really soon. Current juniors are going to be taking the SAT in April. There's a PSAT for, I think, 10th graders in that time. So you're going to get this test done. So we're not going to worry about this particular piece. And then when it says like qualifying scores, we don't have to get into that too much because there's a certain rule I'm going to show you in a second of what classes you can take, and it kind of makes that qualifying score irrelevant. We just need you to take one of these tests in order to qualify. It's a state of Michigan rule. Michael talked about the number of courses you can take. 10 is the maximum a student can take in their high school career. That's just a pacing guide. Am I going on your slides? I don't remember where to stop. You want to take it over? Okay. Let's switch over back to Mrs. Pitcher.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so which college courses are covered under dual enrollment? You all have a list of classes that are common. So that list of classes is not the only list of classes that you can take, but that just gives you some examples. So if you do pick something from that list, it is covered under dual enrollment. But there are many, many, many classes at Macomb. So, if you find a class in a different area, that's fine. You just have to talk to me about it, put it on your request form, and I can let you know if it's approved. But yeah, any class that isn't offered here that doesn't fall into one of those categories that Michael mentioned is okay, typically. So, we have a lot of students do sign language, for example, because we don't offer sign language. Or we have some people do sociology because we don't offer sociology. So, really, it's really about, if you've taken, you can't take an AP class, as we mentioned earlier, for dual enrollment unless you've already had that AP class here. So like psychology, for example, you can't do at Macomb unless you've already taken AP psychology here. The one exception to that would be if you have a course conflict. So let's say, next year you wanted AP psychology and AP statistics, and they're both only offered 5th hour. Then you could opt to take one of those at Macomb. All right, so the classes that are not covered, I believe Michael already mentioned this, so I'm not going to go too much into detail on this, but in those areas, the physical education, any type of hobby class, religious class, those classes are not covered under dual enrollment. Okay, so what should you take? He also kind of covered this too with talking about, what the Michigan Transfer Agreement is, general education courses. And I know, too, from my experience, I work as an adjunct counselor actually at Oakland Community College. So I work with students a lot who are transferring from Oakland Community College to other universities. And the Michigan Transfer Agreement is a good set of gen ed classes to take a look at. The only thing with that is that some of those classes do not count under dual enrollment because we offer AP versions of some of those classes. So it is a little bit tricky. Certain categories work better than others. And so what I usually do is when I sit down with students, I'll kind of point them in the direction of which grouping of classes to look at. But some of these examples, humanities, philosophy, sociology, those are all good areas that a lot of our students take classes in for dual enrollment. Okay, so For the grades, we have questions about this sometimes. So actually on your Chippewa request form, you have to indicate if you want high school credit or college credit or both for your dual enrollment class. And we default to not including it in your grade point average, the final grade, unless you say that you want credit for both. Now, for most students, it's not really a big deal because they're going to do well in their dual enrollment class. And so if you already have a good GPA and you get an A in your dual enrollment class, that should just help your GPA. But, if you're taking something that might be a little bit harder and you're thinking it could bring your GPA down, then maybe you don't want to include it on your high school transcript. So, it's really, that's an individual decision. And sometimes, we'll talk to you about your situation just to see if it makes sense or not. And sometimes students need the credits for high school graduation and sometimes they do not. Okay, so the transportation, I know someone asked earlier about, what hour, is your dual enrollment. And so, it kind of depends on your schedule. But most people, like if they have one dual enrollment class, like usually your 6th hour would be your dual enrollment hour, and then you would leave school after 5th hour. And you could either go directly to your college class if it starts, in the afternoon, or you can just go home. Or sometimes, though, it makes sense to have it 1st hour because maybe some of the classes that you're taking here are offered in the afternoon. So in that case, you can come in late, But if you are someone that, rides the bus, then, that's a little bit of an issue because you still got to, then come at the bus times. But if you have your own car, you can come in late, you can leave early, depending on where your dual enrollment class is in your day. And then the other thing, is you have to get to Macomb. So we don't provide any transportation to Macomb. So, you just have to, if you're going to Center Campus, it's nice because it's down the street, but you still have to have a way to get there. Okay, so textbooks. I know we talked a little bit about the cost of the textbooks being included and how much we pay for the class. And yeah, typically that's true as long as you don't go over the amount the district pays. You do have to buy it, like if you're at Macomb, you have to buy it from the Macomb bookstore. And you indicate at the bookstore that you're a dual enrollment student, and the cost of your book will typically be covered, as long as you're under like that $725 per class. And then we do have you return the book at the end of the semester to the bookstore because it's covered, with the dual enrollment costs. It's the school's property. Yep.
I'll try not to step on your slides anymore. All right, so in terms of scheduling your dual enrollment class, I think in Michael's presentation, he talked about how Macomb delivers classes in a few different ways. I think they do 3 different ways. One would be 100% online class that is self-paced. So that's a class where you can access it 24/7 and do your work 24/7. Then they have classes that are remote but have schedules. So you're meeting that professor live remotely at certain times. It's probably a set time across the semester. And then they have the old-fashioned, traditional show up to a classroom and sit in a chair. Those are still available too, and quite frankly, I would recommend those first, especially if it's your first class. And we've been through a lot of online stuff in the last 3 years. I don't know how you feel about it. I'm still not crazy about it. So maybe look for in-person classes if that works for you. But the bottom line is, you got to work around your high school schedule first. The students have to get your high school diploma. That's the most important thing. So we can't have Macomb's schedule interfering with your schedule here. So if you're taking one dual enrollment class, and like Ms. Pitcher said, your dual enrollment hour is maybe 6th hour, so we've taken away your 6th hour. Use that $725 to go pay Macomb. You don't have a class here, right? You can't, and that 6th hour starts at what, 1 o'clock? You can't take a Macomb class that starts at 11:30. You have a class here at 11:30, right? That happens every year. Pay attention to when these classes are starting and avoid your high school schedule. That one comes first. And then the times of these things. Spring breaks are different. Macomb already had their spring break. Our spring break's next week. Guess what's going to happen to the dual enrollment students? They're still going to be in class next week while you're home or wherever you're going. So you have to think about that too. They start earlier. Michael said that they start in August. We start after Labor Day. You have to be prepared for all those things. Now they do also have classes that start later in the semester and all those things, and you'll see that when you start to look at Macomb's schedule of classes. But this is an important piece. And those students who are in sports or have part-time jobs, now you have to juggle all of these things. All doable, but it takes some planning and some coordination. So this part, we don't like to talk about this part, but it happens. We need you to do all your research so you don't get into trouble. If you withdraw from a course, that's going to cause a big problem, so we wouldn't want you to do all your research ahead of time. And Michael talked about a refund period for things. It's a really short refund period. It's like just a few days after a class starts. When we talk refund, you're not getting the money back, the district's getting the money back. So if you drop a class after the refund period, then we're losing the money there. You don't have a class. We paid for a class that you didn't take, and now we got a problem with the board office because they're wondering where that money went and how it was spent. So do your research, and you can do a lot of research today. When you look at that schedule of classes, many times you can see the professor's name, and then you can go to the internet and look at reviews for that professor. It's called Rate My Professor. And on that Rate My Professor, you can see how hard or easy that person is. So there's no excuse for not doing this right. And you can do all the things where it's going to keep you out of trouble. And that's what I'm talking about with the refund period. So it's only a couple of days where that 100% refund's available. And we have used it before. For whatever reason, maybe that first day, something bad happened to that student. They couldn't take the class anymore. If it's the first day, we're okay. We'll schedule you into a high school class, but you have to communicate with us. If you don't tell us, Macomb doesn't tell us you dropped a class. We only find out later when they send us the bill. Okay. And the district has a rule that you're going to pay us back if that thing happened. When I say pay us, you're going to pay them. We talked about this. This will be on the PowerPoint that you can download later. This is a formula to talk about how much that 725 can do. Right? And there's just another example of it. Right? Is this the end of mine?
Yeah, and I think Michael already talked about this as well. So I'm not going to go too much into detail on it, other than, we did talk about the fact that nothing identifies you as a dual enrollment student to your professors or other students in the class. So you'll be with all types of students of all types of ages. So keep that in mind. Especially if you're only going to be like a 10th or 11th grader next year. Also, advocating for yourself is very, very important, because your professors, they don't know that you're just in high school either. So they're going to expect you to be a college student, and the college really puts emphasis on the student, talking to them. So go to professors' office hours, you contact them. They're not like the teachers in high school that may kind of remind you to turn assignments in and things like that. They don't accept late work. Us counselors here, we can't talk to your professors, so it is really more about you navigating that college process, which is a great opportunity for many people, but you have to be ready for it, because, we have students that do great, and then sometimes we have students that kind of struggle too, and you know yourself better than we do, so you'll know if you're ready or not. All right, so the time for studying, that's a little different too with college classes, because, in high school, you sometimes get class time to do your work, and you're in class a lot more. Now, if you take like a 3-credit college class, typically you're going to be in college for 3 hours a week, but you still got a lot of time outside of class that you got to spend studying. So a general rule of thumb, and this can vary depending on what kind of class you have, is you should spend about 2 hours studying for every hour you're in class. So if you're in a 3-credit class, then that's 6 hours of studying outside of class. So think about that, though, when you're scheduling classes, because sometimes I will have students that say, oh, I want to take 3 college classes, especially senior year, maybe if they don't have a lot of requirements to do. But sometimes they don't really have time for all the studying, especially if they're in sports and they work and things like that. Okay, so the transferring, we talked about this as well with the Michigan Transfer Agreement. The Michigan Transfer Network website is actually a website where you can go on and you can check for certain classes and what transfers to which Michigan colleges. And you can do that class by class. You can also look at transfer guides. And some colleges are better at displaying those than others. Like I know Oakland University, for example, they have some really good transfer guides. A lot of the students I work with at Oakland Community College transfer to Oakland University. And so you can look it up by program. Like if you're going to go into business major at Oakland University, you can look up a transfer guide for a business major, and you can see, okay, what are the classes, that I could take at Macomb that will transfer over as prereqs to get into the business college. So besides just looking at those general education Michigan Transfer Agreement requirements, you can look at the prereqs to get into certain programs at some of the universities as well. So that's something just you kind of do your research on and then talk to us too to see if those classes qualify for dual enrollment, because that's also sometimes confusing, just because a class might be on the transfer guide, it doesn't always qualify as dual enrollment. Okay, so next steps here. So this changed a little bit after we found out about Macomb's self-guided placement for math and English today. But all of you have this checklist, that you got at the beginning of the presentation. This is just to help kind of guide you through all the steps. And you can even write on there about the self-guided placement for the English and math if you want, because I just found that out when Michael came today. But the first step, besides watching the presentation, is doing that request form. So I just want to, I'm not going to go through it all, but just want to tell everybody that each student has to turn in one form for each semester. So that gets a little bit confusing sometimes. So you need one for the fall and one for the winter if you're going to do dual enrollment each semester. And besides just filling out your general information there at the top, you'll want to make sure you put the class at Macomb that you're planning to take. Okay, so you have to find the course number, the name of the course, and the amount of credit hours. And all of that is in Macomb's catalog, or if you look up the schedule of classes, you can find that information. And then the other big thing, we need the student and the parent signature on here. And then we'll fill out the bottom, so you don't have to worry about that. But this form, we want these forms by April 30th for the fall and winter of next year. And then if you want to come to that Macomb meeting on April 20th, we'll walk you through some of those Macomb steps. And Michael, I know, already talked about the Macomb steps. One thing he didn't mention was, the emailing me a screenshot of what you registered for. That is helpful because then I know you actually registered, and then we can drop a high school class from your schedule. Plus, I can also make sure that it says registered, because I think he mentioned there was an example of a student that didn't actually register, and I've seen that many times too. When students email me screenshots, sometimes it just says planned. They're not actually registered. It actually has to have like a green check mark, and it has to say registered. And definitely, the students can email me with questions as they navigate through this process, sign up to see me. The other counselors are pretty familiar too with the process, so they can help as well. But we just definitely want you to get started early and get all of this done before you leave for the summer, because we are out of the office in the summer. We do check our email here and there, but we can definitely help you a lot more before school ends. So it's nice that Macomb actually used to allow registration not till July, so they changed it, and it's open now. So the sooner you get the steps done, then you can register and hopefully secure your spot in a class, because some of those popular classes do fill up. So it's definitely better to do it earlier. All right. Are there any general questions? Yes. No, no, it's just for AP, actually. Good question, though. Yes. Yeah, you can. It depends on what it is, but like sometimes I've had students take astronomy 1 and then they take astronomy 2, and that's fine. Oh, yes. I don't know if I've ever had a student fill that out, but I think it's just on Macomb's website. So I would search on Macomb's website for FERPA form. Yes. Yes. No. Yeah, that is a good question.
So you're saying, well, the general rule about what courses we're allowed to send the money over to Macomb to pay for are things we don't have here. That's the general rule. And the way we counselors look at that is if it's advanced placement that we have here, then that's a college level class, then that area is essentially off limits at Macomb. But sometimes you folks will schedule a couple of AP classes and they bump into each other and you can only get one and not the other. When that happens, you can work with your counselor on taking that class that got bumped out, that AP class, that college level class, take that at Macomb. Is this answering your question from that perspective? Is it about that? Well, let's keep talking then. So that I think would apply to some folks, right? It's a rule to say it's essentially dual enrollment's there to take things that aren't available to you at the high school level. So if you have 2 AP classes you want and they're all both at the same hour, we'll let you take one of those at Macomb and the other with us, because that's the general rule, right? Now, what was your around that area? Okay. Yeah, yes. And since we kind of use the AP rule in our office, since we don't have AP Spanish as a class, then foreign languages are all okay over at Macomb to take. The challenge with foreign language classes is they have labs, and sometimes it's a lot of hours you have to put in with foreign languages. But yeah, they're available. Sign language was one that she mentioned, but we've had students take Spanish at Macomb or Italian or Chinese or some other classes that they're interested in. I saw some other hands up too. Yeah.
Generally, what's this meeting on the April 20th?
Yeah, so this picture is, I used to do dual enrollment for like the first 15 years. She does it way, way, way better in terms of organizing it. And she's set up there an opportunity for you students that need a little jump start after today to finish everything up on that 20th, okay? Not required. So some of you can go on tonight, apply, start getting all this stuff done, and you could be done with all of this by the time we get back from break. You could have your 2 classes scheduled or 2 semesters scheduled, one for the fall, one for the winter, or if you're taking 2 classes each semester, 2 for the fall, 2 for the winter. You could have all that done before April 20th. That's just Ms. Pitchers organized that to have somebody to come here if you get stuck. Okay. And there are opportunities to get stuck. That thing he talked about, the cell phones making calls, when I try to push students towards this and I say, okay, here you've got to do your step, you've got to talk to Macomb, and I leave them in one of our vacant offices to use a telephone to call Macomb, you would think that I just shot their dog. They are so unhappy. But then when they get done talking to the Macomb person, like, wow, that was kind of nice. They were nice to me. Yeah, they're nice to you. I'm not going to yell at you. You're a customer now of theirs. Okay, so yeah, you have to talk to Macomb. That's one of the steps. Once they talk to you and they say, oh yeah, this is a living, breathing person, they've got a good plan, they clear you in their computer, and now you can go and register, the all-important register, and then the screenshot that says register that you can send Miss Pitcher, and she knows then I can move this forward and I don't have to bug Dr. Lawrence because his student didn't do what they were supposed to do. Okay. Other questions? Yeah. You can meet with your regular counselor if you're having trouble, or you can email Ms. Pitcher or myself, all of the above. We'll all be able to answer those questions. Ms. Pitcher is the person in our office that's the point person. She organizes it all for us, and she does a great job with it. Other questions? Okay, so you had just a ton of information. Remember, this PowerPoint, we're going to put it up on our website tomorrow. You can start doing everything tonight if you want to, or tomorrow, or you can get some things done because you remember what Michael said. He's going to come back on the 20th, but he needs you to have a My Macomb password set up at least, because that takes 4 hours to do, so he can't help you beyond that. Once you've got your My Macomb, then he can show you how to register and all that kind of stuff if you're stuck. But like I said, you don't have to wait to that day. You can get everything done ahead of time. And all that enthusiasm that Michael had for this stuff, it is really true. These things really, really help. My own children, I have 3 boys, and 2 of them did dual enrollment while they were in high school, and it made their college experience so much better. They didn't graduate early like Michael was talking about, but they were able to do extra stuff because of that. They were able to take summers off and work. They were able to do a study abroad because they had some credits banked from high school. And AP helped too. So all of those things can be blended together to make that next experience that much better for you. And we'll help you along the way. We just need you to communicate. If you're having difficulties, you come and talk to us, because then we can help you work through it. The parents in this room, your parent can help you work through it too. We just need you to talk. Okay? All right, thank you everybody for your time. Really, really appreciate it. If you need anything, email her.